A unique blend of science and art is on display right now at the 210 Gallery in the Exchange District. Exploring the ELA is a painter's rendering of the experimental lakes area near Kenora, where vital ecological research takes place. The painter in question is Audrey Lute from Gilbert Plains, which is where we have reached her today. Hello, Audrey.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, you're in Gilbert Plains, quite a distance away from the experimental lakes area near Kenora. What did you know about the ELA before you went there?
Well, I did a bit of research on the ELA, and I thought this would be a perfect fit for uh, incorporating into the art that I do. So I thought I'd like to go out and talk to the scientists and just explore what they had. They have a very extensive website, so it was pretty easy to get a feel for the place.
For sure, for sure. Um, what maybe we can step back a second to say what does your art typically look like, or what did it look like before you went out to the ELA?
Well, I do landscape art for the most parts, and it's basically to give me a grounding that's of realism, but I kind of go from there into a fantasy world. So I do the two types and kind of
Hmm.
try to mix them in the end. With I
Okay.
like to mix the facts with the fantasy.
Well, there's lots of facts to engage with when it comes to a place
Yeah.
as scientifically rooted as the experimental lakes area. When you went out there, which I understand was last June initially, what sorts of things did you learn about the research being done at the ELA when you were talking with the scientists there?
Well, I learned the current projects that they are working on, like with the microplastics and the algae and climate change, of course, and about past projects with like through acid rain and but the various things they were working on. They had I was lucky enough they asked me to join them on the lake, so we went out in the boat. We saw the fish, how the fish were trapped and microchipped and placed back in the lake, and it was just a whole interesting aspect on that end. And then another time I went out in the boat where they were putting microplastics into the lake. So it was a whole interesting process. And not only that, I spent time with the scientists and the biologists and in labs, the chemistry lab as well as the fish lab, and then just to explore the lakes themselves, going out and walking, around the area was pretty special. And an interesting part, they have a weather station there as well. So I was up there exploring that as well too. So there's lots to see, lots to do, lots to get involved in as a citizen scientist.
Absolutely. What sorts of things in all of this research caught your sort of artistic eye to say, yes, that's a thing that I need to capture in
uh,
my art?
I think just the being there with the just being there on the lakes, and I wanted to try and capture snippets of everything that was going on so that I could maybe bring it back and share that experience with other people that have never been or didn't know about the ELA, the Experimental Lakes area. I was amazed that so many people did not know about it, and yet it's not that far away from Winnipeg. It's 4 hours, but
Hmm.
I was just kind of surprised that some people didn't know about it. Others did, which was fine. They say, oh, I was there or I've been there. It was just but I just wanted to bring some of that back in a small snippet of time of what people were doing and the importance of it as well. So it was I can bring it forward and do it, use that information in future work as well.
I was going to ask about that in just a little bit, about the influence and the impact legacy that something like this would have for you. But how do you think people have been engaging with the science of the ELA in your work as they view it at the 210 Gallery?
I think it went over very well. I've had once you start talking about one piece, it leads to another, and so you can give them a feel of what it was like to be there. So when I was working on the pieces, I had a pile because there was 24 in total, and as the general public came through while I was working on them, they were interested in where it was, what it was doing, and so that transferred over into the gallery when they were all done on the wall. And I thought, okay, people are interested. They seem to connect with it.
Hmm. You get a couple of different feels as well in your work because you visited the ELA space more than once as well. I understand you also went back in the fall after your initial
Yes.
residency. What were the differences like in the research and in the landscape, and how did those things come across in your work?
Well, in the spring, of course, they're getting geared up to move forward with the summer and get everything together. And then, of course, you have insects in the summer or in the spring, which
Mhm.
come October, it was seemed quieter, much more relaxed. People were gathering together, getting ready for the fall and closing down a wee bit, maybe going home. It was a more relaxed atmosphere, I think, in the fall, but the science was still going on. You still
Mm.
got, you visited, they were still taking lake samples, they were still checking, monitoring the fish, and we were setting minnow traps and things like so. The work still continues, but it just seemed a little more relaxed for me. And two, being there the second time, I was more relaxed.
Yeah, for sure. The paintings in this exhibit are relatively small as I see it. Like I think they're just 6 by 6.
Yes.
Um, why choose this size for your works? And maybe what's the effect that comes with rendering such a large area of space? Like there are, I think, 50 some odd lakes that comprise the
Yes.
experimental lakes areas.
Yes.
58, I think. Why
Yes.
why render them so in such a relatively small format?
Well, I traveled 8 hours to get to the experimental lakes from Gilbert
Ah.
Plains there. I wanted something that was easily transportable. And if I chose one or two to make larger, I could. But I thought these were perfect size for driving back and forth and loading up and taking with me wherever I wanted to work on them. And consequently, they were perfect. They fit into a nice little box and
Mm.
box of paints. I didn't have much to carry out because I realized that in the shuttle going to the lake, there's other people. They've got luggage. So I wanted to keep my supplies as small as possible. So even though they're 6 by 6, they're mounted on an 8 by 8 support. They I think they had an impact where you had
Mm.
to get up close and personal. And I think that's part of the visit, it's a personal experience for every individual.
I was just gonna say, it feels like with that size of a piece, it feels like you have to lean in order to get the full effect.
Yeah,
But then you have to engage with the pieces on a very intentional and very up close sort of a level.
yeah, it's a personal experience.
Yeah. How do you think this the experience rather, of capturing the experimental lakes area in art will influence the landscapes that you do in the rest of your artistic output going forward?
Well, it's the interest in the science aspect of it came from a previous series I had done called The Pond and Beyond, which are little fictitious creatures that live in the pond, and they're kind of environmentalists themselves. Their whole life is surrounded by ensuring lily pads stay alive, and they encounter ecological issues in their way too. So after my visit to the experimental lakes, I want to focus on having those same creatures, but now we have a home for them. Now we have a place where they can actually talk about actual things that are going on in that little community, like, for example, microplastics. So we're going to bring it forward into another series that continues with the fictitious one. But like I said, every once in a while, I need to get grounded and go back and do those landscapes and just see what reality is.
Yeah. What do you hope Manitobans who come to see Exploring the ELA take away about the state of the ecology around them here in the province, and maybe things that they can do to make it better for future generations?
Well, I'm hoping that they will take they take an interest in this, in what is going on. Learn more about the ELA itself, learn what they can do in their own community. Like I mentioned before, citizen scientists, clean up your own backyard, get rid of that old plastic, and just be aware and do what you can to. Every little bit helps, even if it's just one little thing. It makes a big difference on the environment. So, and to go visit the ELA and learn from them, because they do have day visits and week-long stays you can go out to. So I got excited when I got to go out there. I was very fortunate to be able to do the residency there, and I'm just hoping that other people will share my excitement.
Exploring the ELA is on at the 210 Gallery until May the 27th. We will have the hours posted at our website, classic107.com, and on the Classic 107 app. Audrey Lute, such a pleasure to talk to you, and congratulations on this new exhibit.
Oh, well, thank you very much.